to know that he's talking about white Americans. And really that could mean in terms of restricting immigration from India, be it for tech people or for other people, and other types of restrictions that could affect Indians trying to come to the US and affecting Indian Americans, because what Trump did in his first term that could even be strengthened in a second term would be to bolster the bigotry so that even in an informal way, he could really hurt Indian Americans and other minority groups in terms of Latinos. That may be an appeal to men. I think what it breaks down to, again, is more women are supporting Kamala Harris, more men are supporting Trump, maybe among Latino men and black men. But this, I don't mean to single them out. This extends beyond to all men, including whites. There may be a certain amount of appeal based on macho, based on machismo, based on the notion that a woman can't lead the country, based on all sorts of biases. And let's face it, if Kamala Harris were a white man with the same credentials, the same background, the same skills, there's a good chance that because sexism wouldn't be operating, she'd already be further up in certain states than, and in terms of the popular vote, than we're seeing now. That's a reality of American society. You know, on the other hand, in a more positive vein, women are highly motivated. We don't know whether all of their votes have been counted proportionately yet. They've got motivation based on abortion, and also based on the general sense, based on what Trump himself and his surrogates have said, as his allies have said, which have been some very vulgar comments about women, and other things that have emanated from that campaign. Let's not discount the possibility that there could yet be a surge of female votes pro-Harris that haven't yet been counted.
Absolutely, and yet we are seeing what we are seeing at the moment, and especially we're talking about how certain Latino votes, and even if we talk about these young educated women from America not really voting in favor of Harris, and that becomes a concerning point, case in point for the Democrats. We will continue to keep our eyes on this exact very point, on how much of that women voting is going in favor of the Democrats and in turn Kamala Harris. But right now we are going into a very, very short break, coming right back.
That knocked out the Roe v. Wade ruling. I mean, that's changed a lot of women's voting behavior. Democrats did well in 2022 in places because women came out in reaction to that court decision. In rural America, you see more and more white voters voting heavily Republican, margins like 80% to 20% in favor of the Republican candidate. You're seeing more of that. That's while those areas are losing population, the margins still increase. So that kind of makes up for some of the population loss. And then when you see, you know, in this election, the approval ratings for President Biden are really pretty bad. And so that's a strong headwind for Vice President Harris, since she's been basically serving with him. You know, I'm of the impression that, you know, Biden has done a really good job as president. I know that's something that's not widely shared, but, you know, our economy is strong. And you mentioned earlier the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. I mean, those aren't his fault. Trump makes it seem like that wouldn't have happened if he had been president. We don't know that. And Biden managed to put together a very strong coalition to defend Ukraine. And what, you know, I ask people who say they want that war to stop, what would you have Ukraine do? Just roll over and be taken over by Russia? And in the Middle East, you know, obviously what Israel is doing has raised a lot of concerns about people. It looks like possible genocide, but they were defending themselves. They were attacked. Again, not Joe Biden's fault. So, you know, all these different cross currents you're seeing here are kind of mind-boggling to watch.
Absolutely, Ray. Thank you so much for joining us and, you know, also taking us through your perspective on the U.S. presidential elections. And we'll cut straight across now to CNN. There are some very important leads coming in right now. Let's take a look.
John King, voting is about to end in 15 states, the second biggest wave of results this evening 163 electoral votes will be up for grabs, and we're watching several crucial battlegrounds. CNN's going to bring you this projection right now. CNN projects that Texas will go to Donald Trump. The state of Texas, as expected, to Donald Trump with its big bucket of 40 electoral votes. CNN also projects that North Dakota will go to Donald Trump. As expected, North Dakota with its 3 electoral votes. 2 more for Trump now. CNN projects that South Dakota will go to Donald Trump. South Dakota, as expected, with its 3 electoral votes to Donald Trump. And CNN projects that Wyoming will go to Donald Trump. Wyoming with its 3 electoral votes. CNN is not making any projections in the following states that just closed their polls. Arizona, that's a big battleground. Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, battleground Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, and battleground Wisconsin. Let's look at the electoral map now. Donald Trump has 154 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 27 electoral votes. 270 are needed to win. Let's bring you a key race alert now. In battleground Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris in the lead with 64.4% of the vote. Donald Trump has 34.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris in the lead there with 326,000 plus votes. Only an estimated 16% of the vote has been counted in Pennsylvania. In battleground Michigan, Kamala Harris in the lead, 54.8% of the vote. Donald Trump with 43.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 55,000 plus vote lead. That's with only an estimated 8% of the vote counted in Michigan. Still very early in Michigan. In battleground North Carolina, Donald Trump in the lead there now, 51.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 47.1% of the vote. Donald Trump with a more than 106,000 vote lead. That's with 39% of the estimated vote counted in battleground North Carolina. In battleground Georgia, Donald Trump in the lead there, 52.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 46.6% of the vote. Donald Trump has a healthy 221,000 plus vote lead. That's with an estimated 66% of the vote counted in Georgia. About 2/3 of the vote in Georgia has been counted. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, Donald Trump in the lead there now with 49.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 48.7% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 13,334 vote lead. That's with half the vote counted in the Commonwealth of Virginia, 50% counted there in Virginia. In the state of New Hampshire, Kamala Harris has 53.6% of the vote. Donald Trump has 45.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris in the lead there by roughly 16,000 votes. That's with about a quarter, 25% of the Carolina. Another battleground where Donald Trump leads, 50.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 47.8% of the vote. Donald Trump has a 145,388 vote lead over Kamala Harris right now with an estimated 85% of the vote in from the Tar Heel state. In battleground Michigan, Kamala Harris in the lead. She has 51.3% of the vote. Donald Trump has 46.9%. Kamala Harris is 74,838 votes ahead of Donald Trump. But that's less than a third of the vote counted there, 30% of the estimated vote in from the state of Michigan. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, Kamala Harris in the lead there still, but narrowly so, 50.1% of the vote. Donald Trump has 48% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 73,375 vote lead. That is with 78% of the estimated vote in from the Commonwealth of Virginia. In New Mexico, Harris leads there too, 52.6% of the vote. Donald Trump with 45.5% of the vote. That is with an estimated 69% of the vote in. Harris with a roughly 43,000 vote lead. Let's go now to Abby Phillip, who is at Harris campaign headquarters in Washington, D.C. at the campus of Howard University. Abby, what are you hearing from the Harris campaign, if anything?
Yeah, Jake, we actually just got a pretty significant update from the Harris campaign campaign manager, Jen O'Malley Dillon, who sent out a memo to her staff tonight laying out what they see ahead in the coming days and hours, and my colleague Jeff Zeleny is here with me. The memo essentially says, Jake, that the returns are coming in slowly. They still see their path, but that path is largely going to be through the blue wall, as Jeff and I were just discussing. The key point that Jen O'Malley Dillon is making is that this is a close race. This is the close race that they have been expecting. She says to her staff, we are built for this. Let's finish the night out. we will see you tomorrow. They are not expecting this to be wrapped up tonight.
They are not, because the margins are so small. And just reading from that memo, should we have known all along our clearest path to 270 was through the blue wall states. And again, they point out the cities we were talking about: Milwaukee, Detroit, and of course Philadelphia. Abby, a central question hanging over all of this, and indeed the crowd here waiting behind us: is Vice President Harris going to address the crowd? That is a possibility. We will see in the coming days as we hear some helicopters overhead here. We will see. But the bottom line is they know this is a close race. This is going to be not resolved tonight in their eyes.
Yeah, Jeff, this is a critical moment, I think, for the Harris campaign to show where they get to 270. And Jake, it looks like they are not foreclosing really on anything in the map right now that is not called. They're still waiting for the polls to close in parts of the Sun Belt, for those results to come trickling in. But again, it's the blue wall again. It is it's Pennsylvania, it is Wisconsin, and it is Michigan, where the best chances are for Harris to get to that 270 that she needs to become president of the United States.
All right, Abby Phillip and Jeff Zeleny, thanks so much. Let's go to John King at the Magic Wall. John, explain the theory of the case for the Harris campaign right now, if you would.
Right, and you heard Jeff and Abby emphasizing even the campaign, saying essentially they don't rule out any other possibilities, but we're really banking on the blue wall. Well, at the moment as we speak, 2 of the 3 blue wall states, that's Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, 2 of the 3 are red. We're not done, but 2 of the 3 are red. Why is that significant? Well, let's look at the Sun Belt states. And again, the Harris campaign is not ruling this out, but you show this here. Donald Trump, 142,000 votes ahead in North Carolina. I can show you the live outstanding votes. And when I show you the live outstanding votes, you will see some pretty big circles in the blue areas, large metropolitan areas and suburban areas where the Democrats do quite well. I just want to say, at 85% reporting statewide and 142,000 vote lead, is it mathematically possible? Are enough votes out there? Yes. When you get to this point in an election in a state Donald Trump won twice, you start to think, okay, this looks like it did in 2016. And in 2020, it looks more like 2016 than it did in 2020, to be honest with you. But you look at it, and if you're in the Harris campaign, you're calling all these counties, and you're trying to figure out, how many votes are out, and what percentage are we getting. But if you're looking at the North Carolina map, I'd rather be Donald Trump than the Vice President of the United States right now. So then you bring up the Georgia map, and again, this one, I'll say this again, I'm a broken record. 2024 is not 2020. There's not as many mail-in ballots. We won't have as many large percentages of Democratic votes coming in the days after. But Donald Trump was ahead by more than 200,000 votes at this point 4 years ago. So let's just be cautious for the sake of being cautious. And yet, at the same time, I just said that, I want to tell you he's 136,000 votes ahead in a state that was decided by 11,000 votes last cycle. 88% of the vote is in. So where is the live outstanding vote? Live outstanding vote. This is where in the Harris campaign, you're just hoping that overnight these Democratic areas report not just their votes, but a lot of votes. You're hoping turnout exceeds your expectations. So you see down here in the Savannah area, this is where the races are won or lost for Democrats, Atlanta and the suburbs around it. So let's come out of that map. And again, here's the key point. Fulton County, 90% of the vote is in. Yes, she's getting 72% of the vote. Just want to check, compare that. It's a little below where President Biden was, but it's close. But remember, he won the state by 11,000 votes, so she can't really afford to be below him anywhere, or not by much anyway. You move over to Cobb County, 91% in. This is a big suburban county, right? So 91%, you have some change to make up there. She's at 57% if you round that up. The President of the United States was at 56, so she's running equal, maybe a little bit ahead there. So let's come over to DeKalb County here. Let's come up to 2024 and see what's left. 11% left. Again, large, very Democratic area. You see the 81% there just to the east of Atlanta. Let's just check 2020. Biden getting 83. 81, 83. You might think at home that's not that big of a difference. In a race that's very close, yes, it can be a big difference. So we have to watch at the moment. Let's do it this way. Come back to 2024, and let's just pop in this and see where's Harris underperforming. Where is Harris underperforming Joe Biden? In a state Joe Biden won by 11,000 votes, you can't really underperform. And she's underperforming in 28 of the 159 counties, right? So we have more votes to be counted. We're not done yet. This is not a final glimpse. But you see out in these rural areas, this is part of the secret of Joe Biden's win in 2020. He got his butt kicked by Donald Trump in these small rural counties, but he did better than Hillary Clinton. Blue-collar workers, rural workers, people who work with their hands, Joe Biden did just a little bit better. And in a state decided by 11,000 votes, that can matter. So again, you asked me about the map. We're not done. We're going to count. The Harris campaign will update us. They go to their counties. We have people on the ground asking the people, our vote desk with Pam Brown, what votes are still outstanding. But if you look at this map right now, I want to switch. Well, let's just check real quickly where we are in Wisconsin. 61%. I want to check Milwaukee. This is where, okay, only a 53% in Milwaukee. Black turnout in Milwaukee better be huge in the uncounted vote for the vice president to catch up. I talked to a Democrat out there earlier who said it was good. They didn't say it was great. They said it was good. And I asked if it was great, and they said it was good. So we'll see how that plays out. Dane County, 74%. We're at 91%. Again, not to be a broken record, 75%. A percentage point can matter, underperforming by just a little bit. And so she's losing in Wisconsin. Got a ways to go there. She's holding on in Michigan at the moment. We're still only at 32%. So we got a long way to go in Battleground, Michigan. We'll come back out here. And this one is the biggest. And I'm going to show you why in just a second. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we've been saying it.
Interesting developments coming to fore. I'm taking this back to my guest. Now joining us on the broadcast is political analyst and academician Gopalan Balachandran. Mr. Balachandran, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. From what we are learning of now, how do you see this working for Kamala Harris? Because we do know from what are the reports really coming in from the Harris's headquarters there. There's a memo that has come out from Harris's campaign manager. Now, what does the memo really say? They go on to say that they are still not really seeing the returns come in and they are banking on the blue wall states. Right now, most of the Democrat-leaning votes haven't yet been counted, but the electoral map really says 211 red. Do you see something swinging in favor of Harris still?
I'll be clear for once. Afterwards, I'll keep quiet because nobody seems to be talking sense. I have held for the last 3 weeks that the only way that Kamala has no problem at all, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which will give her 44 electoral votes, and with the consensus of 226, which is already everybody's agreed, she will have 270. Nothing has changed.
No, but Mr. Balachandran, I beg your pardon, I would interrupt you there. Out of these three key swing states, right now, only Michigan seems to be working in favor. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin has a Trump lead.
No, sorry, I got right in front of me. Let me tell you, in Wisconsin, here's what it is saying, but in Pennsylvania, okay.
Okay.
Well, post-COVID and post the Dobbs Supreme Court decision in 2022 that knocked out the Roe v. Wade ruling, I mean, that's changed a lot of women's voting behavior. Democrats did well in 2022 in places because women came out in reaction to that court decision. In rural America, you see more and more white voters voting heavily Republican, margins like 80% to 20% in favor of the Republican candidate. You're seeing more of that. That's while those areas are losing population, the margins still increase. So that kind of makes up for some of the population loss. And then when you see, in this election, the approval ratings for President Biden are really pretty bad. And so that's a strong headwind for Vice President Harris, since she's been basically serving with him. I'm of the impression that, Biden has done a really good job as president. I know that's something that's not widely shared, but, our economy is strong. And you mentioned earlier the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. I mean, those aren't his fault. Trump makes it seem like that wouldn't have happened if he had been president. We don't know that. And Biden managed to put together a very strong coalition to defend Ukraine. And I ask people who say they want that war to stop, what would you have Ukraine do? Just roll over and be taken over by Russia? And in the Middle East, obviously what Israel is doing has raised a lot of concerns about people. It looks like possible genocide, but they were defending themselves. They were attacked. Again, not Joe Biden's fault. So, all these different cross currents you're seeing here, are kind of mind-boggling to watch.
Absolutely, Ray. Thank you so much for joining us and, also taking us through your perspective on the U.S. presidential elections. And we'll cut straight across now to CNN. There are some very important leads coming in right now. Let's take a look.
John King, voting is about to end in 15 states, the second biggest wave of results this evening. 163 electoral votes will be up for grabs, and we're watching several crucial battlegrounds. CNN's going to bring you this projection right now. CNN projects that Texas will go to Donald Trump. The state of Texas, as expected, to Donald Trump with its big bucket of 40 electoral votes. CNN also projects that North Dakota will go to Donald Trump. As expected, North Dakota with its 3 electoral votes. 2 more for Trump now. CNN projects that South Dakota will go to Donald Trump. South Dakota, as expected, with its 3 electoral votes to Donald Trump. And CNN projects that Wyoming will go to Donald Trump. Wyoming with its 3 electoral votes. CNN is not making any projections in the following states that just closed their polls. Arizona, that's a big battleground. Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana. Joins the map of key race alerts. Kamala Harris has 50% of the vote. Donald Trump has 49.2% of the vote. That is a 15,478 vote lead for Kamala Harris, with 49% of the estimated vote counted. Kamala Harris in Wisconsin, 49.9% of the vote. Donald Trump bringing up the rear, 48.5% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 19,910 vote lead. That's with 43% of the estimated vote counted in Wisconsin. Pennsylvania, Donald Trump in the lead there now, 50.3% of the vote in Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris has 48.7% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 58,648 lead right now, with an estimated 51% of the vote in Pennsylvania. In Georgia, Donald Trump in the lead there, 51.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris, 47.2% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 204,640 vote lead. That's with 81% of the estimated vote in Georgia. In Battleground, Michigan, Kamala Harris in the lead, 51.1% of the vote. Donald Trump with 47% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 43,307 vote lead. That's with an estimated 19% of the vote in Battleground, Michigan. In Battleground, North Carolina, Donald Trump in the lead, 52.4% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 46.4% of the vote. Donald Trump with 253,752 more votes as of right now than Kamala Harris. That's with
bags and sealed and locked. Sealed numbers are traced for chain of custody, and they will be locked up and kept here.
50.7% of the vote.
Just how smoothly has it gone? Because we've heard that it's gone incredibly smoothly here in Allegheny.
So this crew that works here on election day, they've gotten really good at this since 2020. I mean, we posted our first batch of approximately 186,000 mail-in ballots by 8:02. And by law in PA, we're not allowed to post any results before 8 o'clock.
Is there anything we can look to be outstanding after midnight tonight?
Just the provisional ballots, which we are sworn in on Friday to start our return board. That is our recount. That's when we'll start researching those provisionals, see how many we have, and start counting those. And again, like I said, the overseas and military ballots, this will count and get into the system next week.
Any sense of how many of those there are?
Less than 4,000 total.
David, thank you very much. Great update. All right, guys, back to you. Allegheny County, close to the finish line here.
All right, Brian, thanks so much. Let's get more on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with Pamela Brown, who's at the voting desk. Pamela, take us through what is left to be counted, what's outstanding.
Well, it's a big question what's going on in the collar counties around Philadelphia. These are the blue-leaning collar counties that the Harris campaign has been trying to drive up turnout. That's Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery counties, where results have been slowly coming in. So I just spoke to an official in Chester County. An official there tells me that they just released a large batch of mail-in ballots. So that release was 60,673. And by 1 a.m., I'm told they'll see more results from the precincts of today's in-person votes. You have to remember, they have to take the memory card, drive it in. It's a large county. Now, total ballots counted so far, like this is 151,950. And then I should note the ballots cast in person today there in this key collar county is 91,277 per this official. Let's go over to Bucks County. This is another critical collar county, as John King has been talking about all night. I'm told results will trickle in as these data cards are being driven from the polling places. An official I was just in touch with, texting with there in Bucks, says so far over 90,000 mail-in ballots are accounted for in the results out of a possible total of 151,000. 1,000. And I also want to note this, that the state will be required to report the outstanding early votes by midnight. So we should get a clearer picture soon there in this critical battleground Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Back to you.
All right, fascinating. And she was just talking about Bucks County. Walk us through Bucks County. This is where Harris had a couple big events there, including that one with Liz Cheney, really making a play for Republican women, especially in Bucks County.
And for Haley voters. Nikki Haley got 155,000 votes in the Pennsylvania primary long after she was out of the race, so that was one piece of the competition. Two things to say about this. Number one, it's only half the vote. So if you just think we have about 200,000 more votes, right? This is 51%. It's 103 to 102. So you got roughly 200,000 votes still to come in. Bucks County is the most competitive of the collar counties. She's at 50%, the vice president, if you round up. Again, President Biden was at 52 if you round him up. You say that's not a huge difference, but Jake, you know the Commonwealth very well. In the point or a point can matter, and right now that number is not good for the vice president.
Indeed. And CNN can bring you a projection now. Folks at home, CNN projects that the state of Oregon will go to Kamala Harris. As expected, Oregon, with its 8 electoral votes, will go to the Democrat Kamala Harris. Let's take a look at the electoral map. Right now, Donald Trump has 211 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 153 electoral votes. 270 are needed to win. Let's take a look at the key races now. Arizona, Donald Trump in the lead there, 49.6% of the vote. Kamala Harris right behind him with 49.5% of the vote. Donald Trump with a roughly 3,000 vote lead. That's with 51% of the estimated vote in from the state of Arizona. In Battleground, Wisconsin, Donald Trump maintaining his lead, 50.4% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 48% of the vote. Donald Trump with a more than 50,000 vote lead right now with 63% of the estimated vote in from the Badger State. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Donald Trump maintaining his lead, 51% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 47.9% of the vote. Donald Trump with more than 165,000 more votes than Kamala Harris, with more than 3/4, 76% of the estimated vote in from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In Battleground, Georgia, Donald Trump in the lead, 50.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 48.3% of the vote. Donald Trump has a more than 131,000 vote lead over Kamala Harris. That's with 90% of the estimated vote in. So they got 10% to go there in Georgia, but Donald Trump in the lead. In North Carolina, another battleground, Donald Trump still in the lead there with 50.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 47.9% of the vote. Donald Trump has a more than 138,000 vote lead over Kamala Harris with an estimated 87% of the vote in. In Battleground, Michigan, Kamala Harris is in the lead, 50.2% of the vote. Donald Trump has 48% of the vote. Harris has a more than 40,000 vote lead over Donald Trump with 1/3, 33% of the vote in there. John King.
So, Jake, just going through some of these counties in Pennsylvania, again, Joe Biden won the state. Let's go back and show you it. 81,000 votes, right? His birth state. He's from Delaware now, but he was born in Pennsylvania. That was one of the things that helped him, is because he was, as he liked to call himself, the scrappy kid from Scranton. So where are we now in 2024? I was just looking here. This is Lackawanna County. This is where Joe Biden was born. Scranton, Pennsylvania. You say, well, the vice president's winning it with 51%, but Donald Trump's at 48, right? So again, in a close battleground state, margins within some of these counties can matter. She's at 51. Joe Biden, 4 years ago, was at 54. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. You look at the margin. Democratic coalition. This is the foundation. There's no house for Democrats without the foundation of Philadelphia. At the moment, she is underperforming the President of the United States, and she has to make up 178,000 votes. The math there is pretty clear. It's not mission impossible, but the more you get deeper into the count, the question is, after this next big batch of votes from Philadelphia, does it become mission improbable? I think is what you're looking for as we wait for more votes in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And again, Trump wins Pennsylvania, the map gets near impossible. Not impossible, but near impossible.
There have been stories written a week or two ago about Democrats in Philadelphia sounding the alarm and basically using the press to send the message to the Harris campaign that they didn't think that the Harris campaign was listening to Philadelphia Democrats enough about the need to improve the margins. And just, Donald Trump lost Pennsylvania in 2020, but he improved his vote count in Philly from 2016 to 2020, and it looks like he's doing that again tonight, even while improving his margins in the collar counties, as opposed to what happened 4 years ago.
Well, we don't have the raw numbers yet, obviously, because we're at 70%, but he's at 22 if you round that up, 117,000 votes. Let's just go back and look. He's certainly on track to. If he keeps the percentage he's at now, right? He's at 18% there, and he had 132,000 votes. He's at 117,000 votes, and we still got 30% of commit. So it sure looks like he's overperforming 2020. We're not done yet, but it sure looks like that. And then, so the analysis afterwards will be, who is it? Is it black voters in Philadelphia? There's some suburban areas outside of Philadelphia there. There's some affluent white voters there as well. But that will be the analysis afterwards. The thing that strikes me is we're going through these states. The thing you heard in the last week from the Harris people is that we're on the ground. Our labor allies are on the ground. Our progressive groups are on the ground. Our LGBTQ groups are on the ground. We're knocking on doors, and we don't see the Trump people anywhere. Trump did sort of contract out his get out the vote. I was in 7 or 8 of these battleground states in the last couple of weeks. We didn't see many Trump people out there at all, just doing phone banks. But what happened in 2016 is Trump's support was organic. It was organic. And so, the Trump campaign says, texts and phone calls work to turn out voters. Democrats think it's knocking on the doors. If this map holds up, that's going to be a big conversation about motivating and turning out voters in this technology age. What works best? What kind of contact works best? Or, the vice president's campaign, well, they say she only had 110 days. She didn't have enough time to introduce herself. But that part, we're not done yet. But that's what's going to happen. If that happens, is who the finger pointing in the Democratic Party. We're not there yet. But as you watch this map fill in, another thing that is distinctive at the moment, we're not done yet. In 2 presidential elections, Donald Trump has lost the popular vote both times. At the moment, he's 5.1 million votes ahead. We're just starting to count in our most populous state. So there's a long way to go, and that could change. But that would be a trophy, if Donald Trump wins this election, that would be a trophy he would very much like to claim after losing the popular vote in 2 elections in a row.
And you also know there are people in the senior echelons of the Trump campaign who say that they still do direct mail because there's said seniors, you can't reach seniors through texting and emails, that the way to reach them is with direct mail, which a lot of people in politics today laugh off, but guess who votes more than young people? Seniors. Sarah Seidner, let's go to Wisconsin if you can, because I want to bring in Sarah Seidner, who's at a vote counting center in Milwaukee right now with 66% of the vote in. Donald Trump is in the lead there with 50.6% in Wisconsin in general. Kamala Harris with 47.8%. Donald Trump right now in the lead by almost 60,000 votes. Sarah, you have officials with you who can tell us about the outstanding vote in Wisconsin. Still about 1/3 of the state's vote is outstanding. What can you tell us?
Yeah, we just